Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Birds TV with Adam Kaplan and Jeff Mosher, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook. Joining us today, and I thought it was going to be a little bit. I thought we were going to have him back to preview the Broncos-Eagles game later this year, but we couldn't miss out on the opportunity to bring back Mark Schereth a little early because, hey, he just did the Eagles-Niners game along with Adam Amin for Fox Sports, so he got a bird's-eye view of everything that happened last Sunday, and we always appreciate his insights and him coming on. Stink, good to see you, brother.
Likewise, great to be with you guys. Always fun to catch up.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's sort of irony. I mean, you do a Broncos game week one, and then week two you come out to Philadelphia, and the irony is that the last time we had you on was when the Eagles drafted Landon Dickerson. And we wanted your perspective on Landon coming back from his fourth knee surgery, because everyone knows you've been through countless surgeries in your life, and you gave us great kind of perspective on how you're never really 100%. You have to have a new 100% in your mind. And there you're doing the game. Brandon Brooks gets hurt. Landon Dickerson comes in. Did you kind of have your eyes specifically on him, knowing his whole situation?
No, not. I mean, obviously you're watching it, but there's so many things going on in a broadcast. I think the thing that you don't realize when you're, like for me as a studio analyst or as a player, you don't realize all the stuff behind the scenes that you want to get into, right? And all of a sudden you got to throw it to the studio. Then all of a sudden you got a commercial break. Then all of a sudden we got to run this kind of commercial within the game, that's it's Baker Mayfield, doing whatever. You got the game in the corner box. And so there are all these things that happen. You want to get into a topic, and then something else happens. And then, and it just is kind of the way the game flows. And that game was really crazy because, obviously it was, a bare knuckle brawl. I mean, that was a fisticuffs kind of fight. And I found it, I found that part of it really intriguing. And it's funny, I mentioned it in the open of the broadcast about how the narrative nationally about the Eagles was rebuilding and, new head coach. And you get all this kind of, rock, scissors, paper, we're going to compete and all this stuff. He actually played rock, scissors, paper with me on camera. Oh, yeah. Right when he walked in, I go, let's throw down. And I got it on the iPhone, and it wasn't the kind of game that you could actually play it. So there's a lot of things that you want to do in a broadcast sometimes that you just can't get done. Yeah. And that's probably would be my biggest hurdle for me as a broadcaster is I have a tough time. It's the offensive lineman in me. I can have 65 great plays in a row. I have one crappy play, and that's all I can think about for the next 3 days, right? Is that one play. And so it's always hard to kind of do that. And until you're in there, until you hear it going on and see what you're seeing, you have no idea until you're in that environment, right? Of how much crap is going on and how much eye candy there is to see. And, we got into that kind of that give and take. And as I was studying and going through it, watching the Eagles, as I was prepping for the game, I was like, damn, like this team is pretty loaded. Like their starting defensive and offensive lines are pretty nasty, and I'm watching it. I'm like, they're mauling people. And it's so funny because obviously Kyle Shanahan is I've known him since he was 15, right? And he's like, with our producer, he's like, hey man, I'm really busy. I got some other things going on. Can I just talk to Stink one-on-one? And he's like, yeah, we're like, yeah, we'll it's fine. We're doing this thing, right? And so I'm talking to John Lynch before the game, the GM of the 49ers. He goes, yeah, Kyle was complaining. He goes, why do I got to talk to Stink? Stink watches all our film. He knows exactly what we're right. So I'll give you one other funny story about meetings, but let me just say the thing I talked about with Kyle was, he's like, you read all this stuff or you hear all the news about what the Eagles are and what they're going to be this year. He goes, then you pop on the tape and he goes, dude, they're stout. Like they are legit stout. And they proved it. They shut them down for the first two quarters until the very last drive where they got the touchdown. They just shut them out and they completely changed kind of the running game. But it was funny because I was talking to Jalen Hurts. And, I asked him about RPOs and walking me through kind of what he's looking at and everything else. And he just kind of gave me this blank stare. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I didn't ask it right. Maybe it didn't come out right. Maybe he doesn't understand what I'm asking. So I kind of re-asked it, reshuffled it around. And he just looked at me and goes, "You guys are cousins." And I said, "What?" He goes, "You guys are cousins." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You and the head coach. You're like cousins." I go, no. So it was funny, man. It was cute. Cute, maybe not the right word, but it was great. And I found Sirianni incredibly intriguing. I found Jalen Hurts incredibly intriguing. Smart, really great football conversations with those guys.
Wait, don't bury the lead here. You played rock, paper, scissors with Nick Sirianni. We got to know who won.
Oh, he whipped my ass. All right. 2 in a row.
He's got a lot of practice.
It wasn't even close. So he's legit, man. He's a legit rock, scissors, paper guy, or rock, paper, scissors, however you call that. So yeah, he got me. And I so bad wanted to put it on TV, but the game just didn't lend itself. Like, those are fun things to do if there's a blowout, if there's something going on. But
sure,
when you get into a game that really is kind of tooth and nail like that, and not necessarily a lot of offensive stuff going on, it just didn't lend itself to that.
Mark, your tape study before the game on the Eagles' offensive line, then calling the game as you did at the link. What were your thoughts of their line after getting done with all the work there?
Well, I mean, I go up and down that line of scrimmage. Jason Kelce is a freak show, and when he gets out on the edge, I mean, that's shut the door of the study and put a tie on the doorknob and tell my wife not to come in. I'm watching Kelce film. That's like that. Like, I love watching him play. I love watching the athleticism. I love watching the way he just controls things. Very smart, obviously, helping in protections and all that. Brooks is one of my favorite players to watch. I think Brooks does a fine job just coming off the ball, being physical, as does Lane Johnson. He is so athletically gifted. The left guard, what is it, Sayamalo.
Right.
Physical, really does a good job with physicality as well. And then Jordan Mailata is he's just one of the most interesting guys in football to me. And to not have played, not start your career until 4 years ago, and to advance to the skill level that he's at, to me is crazy. I thought, again, and I'm not watching the coach's tape. It's just the game going on. I'm looking at a million different things. But other than the one sack that, give Nick Bosa a lot of credit, he's incredibly athletic. He's a smart pass rusher. He couldn't beat him with speed all day, and he turned speed to power, where Jordan was setting kind of soft because he was defending speed all day long, and he got him pushed in the pocket and got a sack. And that's the dilemma of playing offensive line. You can whip somebody's ass 65 plays in a row, you give up a sack, and you suck, and he goes to the Pro Bowl, right? He had a great game, and ultimately, I thought Jordan Mailata was really good, and to think that he's only been playing for 4 years, and to garner that kind of contract and to be that big and that agile he's a pretty incredible player, pretty incredible young player. So I thought up front, I think, I don't know their depth exactly, but I think they're pretty damn good.
I want to get into you with you, Mark, on what you saw against the Niners that might have been different versus the Falcons from the Eagles offense. First, I want to remind everyone to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code ITB. You get $150 in free bets. That's all you have to do. Use promo code ITB to get $150 in free bets when you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So, obviously against Atlanta, they scored 32 points. It seems they moved the ball extraordinarily efficiently, sort of surgically. And then against the 49ers, it was a different story. So beyond the mistakes, like the penalty that brought back the touchdown, the blocked field goal, the fourth and goal play, just in general, what did you see differently out of the offense, the flow, the rhythm against the Niners that made it so difficult compared to the week before?
Well, I think, obviously, I think when you look at just the way they set things up, I thought they did a much better job of setting plays up. And there was a lack of rhythm. They got out of a rhythm early because San Francisco made some plays for no gain or short yardages or tackles for losses. And so they got out of their rhythm. I thought in Atlanta, you go right back to you go to the first 3 games, or the first 3 or 4 plays of the game. They get into a trips formation to the right, and they run a bubble screen. I think it was to Watkins. And then they get in the exact same formation. They just flip it to the other side. They run another bubble screen to Watkins. And then they run a zone read play, I think. And then they come back to that formation, and they run the zone read. And all of a sudden, they've got the boot keep game, the naked boot, with Jalen Hurts, and they get another first down. I thought they did a great job of being in rhythm and being play repeaters. And I thought Nick Sirianni did a tremendous job with basically saying, here, we're going to show you this. Here, we're going to show you this. Here, we're going to show you this. That's all eye candy now, because now we're going to get you with this. And I think they're very similar in the way Nick Sirianni calls a game and the way Kyle Shanahan calls a game. I think they do a great job. Now, completely different from a formational standpoint, completely different from a personnel grouping standpoint. But what I'm telling you is from a theory standpoint of setting plays up, I think he's incredible. When you get out of a rhythm and the plays that you're using to set up aren't successful, it's hard to get to the next thing. And the other thing that I think was interesting, and I agree with what they were doing, philosophically, the weakest part of the 49ers, let me just say, the strength of the 49ers in my mind is their linebacking core and coverage. They can rush the passer with Bosa and Eric Armstead and some of the other guys. They're pretty decent at rushing the passer, D Ford and the like. But their strength is their ability to play their coverage. That they're in a team that's going to play cover 3 most of the time, some type of match cover 3. And when you start talking about what is your responsibility, so for instance, hook players in a cover 3 are going to be a yard, 2 yards outside the hash, 8 to 10 yards deep, right? That's where you're trying to get to. But where San Francisco is really good based on down and distance, based on route combinations they're getting, you're supposed to be at 10, but all of a sudden Fred Warner will be at 14. And he'll take away that intermediate in-cutting route with position. And the quarterback can't go there. So all of a sudden, he goes, I can't get there. Now I'm going to check it down. And then Fred will just trigger in a play that should get you into second down and 4, gets you into second down and 8. And you're like, and now we're behind the chains. And so I know there's probably a lot of people in Philly right now going, did you forget about the tight ends?
Exactly.
Where are the tight ends? Right?
Exactly.
And you're looking at what they are as a defense. You're saying, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I take advantage of the best matchups. You look at where San Francisco is right now on the outside. They've got rookie corner starting in Lenore and Josh Norman, who they just picked up a couple of weeks ago. He's had a week and a half of practice. That's the weakest part of their football team. And you know what? Theoretically, they did a great job of attacking that. You had the one Watkins 91-yard, pass that he didn't score on, and then you end up, playing the Philly special that they totally read, and it was almost like, they had expected that play to come down. And so, I guess my hindsight being 2020, I would sit there and say, hey, man, I'm gonna rely on my big horses up front. I got big, strong offensive linemen, man. I'm getting behind somebody that I'm gonna make something happen there. But that's just a different mentality, that I have. But I'll say this: they attack that outside, they attack that corner, they attack Lenore a bunch. And theoretically, I understand. I think it's probably the right thing to do. Now, I will tell you this: I do believe that you need to develop a better under center running game. I believe that that's part of what you have to do, because anytime you're shotgun run, your running back is either plus or minus, meaning if it's minus, he's on the weak side. If it's plus, he's on the strong side, right? But he's on the side of the quarterback. So there are no front side runs when you're running back in shotguns if he's on your right side, you're running to the left. If he's on your left side, you're running to the right. There are no front side runs designed unless you create some type of flip play. But so you think about shotgun runs, you take an offense and you say, hey, let's say we have, however many runs we have, like let's call it 15 or 10 going in this game. You really pare it down in your shotgun package. You're operating about 30 to 40% of the runs you actually have. And so that's why, to me, being under center is imperative. But to be efficient under center, you have to understand, drops. And as a young quarterback, it's funny. I was talking to a coach, this is 2 weeks ago, who was talking about his quarterback. He goes, classically trained, he has West Coast feet. And when you talk to coaches and you talk about the passing game, a lot of the West Coast guys will tell you, and this is true for anybody, but it's the West Coast guys that speak this way. He'll say, they will say, you got to throw it with your feet. And what that means is that every drop you take, there is precision in every single drop. And if you want to be on time and on target, those drops have to be perfect. And sometimes a 3-step drop is 2 small steps and 1 big step based on the route combination. Sometimes it's 3 even steps. Sometimes a 5-step drop is 3 big steps and 2 little steps. And it's all based upon what that route combination is and when you want the ball out of your hand. And it all times up perfectly in the West Coast offense if the receiver is on time and you're on time with your feet. If you're off with your feet, you can't trigger the ball on time. Therefore, you're not going to be accurate. And the timing and the mesh is going to be off on that particular route combination. And so when you come out of college, and this is one of the really hard things for young quarterbacks coming out of college, they don't train this way. They stand in shotgun, they get the ball, and they just throw it to one dude. And it's a completely different skill set. And, I'm here in Denver, and I went to every training. Maybe there was 1 or 2 I didn't go to, but I went to just about every training camp practice. And when they would break for water or break for a defensive period, Teddy Bridgewater would be talking to all the receivers and going through things like, hey, you got to do this. And you could see him over there and hand gesturing and all that. Drew Lock would be on the other field working on drops. He'd have a center, himself, and a receiver and like a QB coach. And he'd be over there working on the timing of his footwork. And I just don't think many people really understand how difficult that is and how precise it is. And think about anything, think about when you first started riding a bike. You really had to concentrate, right, on I got to get the pedals right. I got to get my foot up here right now. I got to get off this, this curb that I'm standing on. I got to push with the one pedal, and then I got to get my balance. And now I got to, and when I'm turning, if I lean too far and, and then eventually you learn how to ride a bike, you don't even think about it anymore, right? You just ride. Well, when you're young and playing quarterback in an offense that has precision like that, you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're thinking about that and you're not actually reading what the defense is doing. And so those are the things that take time to develop. And, we live in a society where we want it done yesterday, and it just doesn't work that way.
Mark, when you studied Jalen Hurts before this game, did you notice the footwork? Is that part of why you were just talking about it? Like what did you see from him before the game from your tape study?
I thought Jalen threw the ball exceptionally well. Again, this is more of him out of shotgun. I thought he was on time with the ball, and he was good. The shotgun stuff is a little bit different, although I will tell you the really good quarterbacks are very precise, even in shotgun. So even if they're getting it at 5 yards and it's a 3-step drop, they're still taking maybe I talked to Matt Ryan about this, maybe the 3 smallest steps you've ever seen. But I am making sure that I work on that stuff. I think you can get away with it. Matthew Stafford used to tell me all the time early in his career, something he really had to work on because he was so used to being in shotgun. He'd go, my mechanics would just get lazy back there because I'm already away from the rush. So I'm not thinking about, tying that together. I'm becoming more of a sight thrower than an anticipatory feel thrower. And I thought Jalen was really good. I thought play calling was really good. I thought they did a great job, like with the bubble screens and some of the easy throws they created for him, some of the play action stuff they created for him, a few of the RPO things that they created for him, where they had one series. They had one series to Devontae Smith where they ran an arrow route from the outside, and all an arrow route to me is you just coming off the ball like for 4 or 5 yards and you're stopping your turn around, right? And you're working away from leverage, whichever way. If you got inside leverage, you just work away from it. If you got outside leverage, you work inside, right? And so he ran it from the outside, bam, found the hole, end zone, turned around, worked away from the leverage, bam, caught it. It was a 5-yard gain. Then they got him in the slot. He did the same thing, another arrow route, right to the inside coverage, bam, worked away from it. They threw it to him, bam, another 5-yard gain. And then 2 plays later, they did the same thing. He stops, shuttles, bam, hits the seam, and it's a 15-yard gain. Like those things for your quarterback are pretty easy, right? We're getting zone here. We're throwing these arrow routes. Bam, we got another zone. Now we throw the kind of stop slant or stop seam. And I thought those things were really well constructed and well executed in game number 1. Those things didn't happen in game number 2. And it was just kind of a dirty, kind of ugly, nasty, physical game. And again, the matchup was really outside, and that's what they tried to attack.
All right, don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want. Get on Deal Dash. And when you get on DealDash.com or the app, you use the promo code ITB for a special offer for bonus free bids. That's bonus free bids using the promo code ITB on Deal Dash. So, Mark, I know you've played offense all your life. You're an offensive lineman. But I'm going to ask you to put your defensive coordinator cap on. As you watch that game, Eagles defense, you hold the opponent to 17 points. I think that you're generally happy with that. But there were 2 really long drives by the 49ers, a 97-yard drive. The Niners, 97-yard drive and an 85-yard drive. And for the most part, I think Jonathan Gannon, the new D coordinator for the Eagles, went with a 4-man rush and dropped everybody else into coverage for the most part. When you have an offense marching on you like that, is there a certain time and a feel where you say, I've got to be a little bit more either deceptive on the back end or disruptive with a blitz as this team is starting to get comfortable?
Yeah, I don't know if they were ever comfortable. I mean, they converted, some third down, and they kept themselves in a lot of third down and manageable situations. I will say this. It's easy. It's always easy to second guess or say, hey, you should have brought pressure. But you're in a tight game, and there used to be a saying, and we had it all the time when I was playing, live by the blitz, die by the blitz. I hope you blitz us. I hope you bring pressure because we're going to eviscerate you on the outside. And I think there's so much respect for Kyle and his offense, the play action stuff that they use that, you're in a tight game. Heck, it was 7-3 for the majority of that game, right? I think you're looking at that going, it's hard to put, 12-play, 15-play drives together and actually score touchdowns. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. And normally, your offense is going to shoot itself in the foot. You're going to get a holding call. You're going to get an offsides penalty. You're going to get something that's going to stall that drive, or you're going to have an incomplete pass and you're going to be behind the chains. You're going to run on 2nd down and 10. You're only going to get 2 yards, and now you're in 3rd down and 8, and that's hard to convert. And so I think because they were in third manageable situations, as I recall, most of those drives. The thing about the Niners that makes them unique is 3rd and 4 is every bit the running play that it is a throwing play. Mm-hmm. And so you start to, I think as a coordinator, you start to make decisions based upon the duality of what they do on the offensive side of the ball. Makes this really tricky for me to say, hey, if we bring pressure and they get us on a double move, we're in trouble. We're giving up a 70-yard or 60-yard touchdown. And so because they stayed in those manageable situations, and this is uniquely San Francisco because there's a very few people that have a nickel run game that they rely on and they trust like San Francisco does. So I just think those are calculated guesses. I don't have a problem with the way he called the game. I think he's a very bright young coach and another one of the guys that I just felt really great about talking football with because he just is like I said, he understands the game. He understands how to manage and get the best out of his players. And it's always easy to go back and say, well, we should have brought pressure here or whatever. But, you think about it with a team that has that kind of versatility or that duality, bring pressure, especially blitz pressure on a running down. And you miss your gap, you miss your hole, and it's hard to be under control when you're hell-bent for election. You miss that, all of a sudden that's a 60-yard run, and now you're in trouble. And it's funny because I'll go back to my playing days. The Raiders used to always think they'd get us with run blitzes. And, my career, people always say, hey, you just hate the Raiders. You can't stand the Raiders. I go, I don't hate the Raiders. I love the Raiders. I was 11-1 against their punk asses. Right? They were my personal good thing. But every time we played them, the Raiders thought that they could run blitz us. They thought they could bring pressure on rundowns and nickel rundowns and everything else. And, it'd go, hey, we get 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, 1 yard, 56. 2 yards, 1 yard, 3 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, 48. And inevitably, we'd have 200 yards rushing or 190 yards rushing, and we just put it on them. And it's really hard to maintain gap integrity when you're saying, hey, D lineman, you got to pinch hard and we're going to fill over here, and all of a sudden he pinches a little too hard and gets too much inside across. He crosses a gap and all of a sudden you free flow. Somebody hits you and he pushes you a gap wider than you're supposed to be. And now the running back is running through a 4 or 5 yard hole. Mm-hmm. And the middle of the field safety, you got one-on-one with a middle third player, and he's got no chance to tackle your guy. And that's demoralizing. And I will tell you this, far more demoralizing for a defense to give up a, 5 yard, 6 yard, 8 yard, 5 yard, 6 yard, 8 yard, 40 yard run than it is, hey, 40 yard double move over the top. We beat them on a pass play. It's easier to wipe that clean. Cornerbacks are used to it. They're like, I bit, it happens. Harder, more demoralizing for a defense to give it up in the run game.
Mark, I have to ask you this. Jeff Stalin is the Eagles offensive line coach, a legend in Philly. He's been there, here with Chip Kelly. He's done a great job, one of the better O-line coaches in the league. But you were actually coached for many years by maybe one of the best of all time, and Alex Gibbs. Give our listeners just an idea of how good he was and how he shaped you as a football player.
Well, obviously he was, great from a technician standpoint, what he wanted, and just a knowledge standpoint. We're really big on, pride ourselves on being the smartest group, of any group in the league. And so, it went beyond just X's and O's and executing, what we're doing. It got to us, it was, at least for me, it was reading safety rotations, looking at where guys are lined up, what they could possibly do from there. Where the fill player, where the support player is coming from, all those different things. And when you start to understand, I talk to NFL teams right now. I consult for a couple of NFL teams, talking to them about depth of drop and timing of routes. And you'd be surprised that there are teams that are like, oh shoot, we've never talked about that. So I knew, everybody knows what a 3-step drop is because you call it, right? But on your 5-step drops, do you know which ones are out fast? Do you know which ones are out, like hit the 5th step and get it gone? Because I can treat that just like I treat a 3-step drop. I can up kick it. I can be aggressive on that. How about a 5-step drop with a hitch? How about a 5-step drop that has 2 hitches? Like I want to know that stuff. 7-step drop. How many hitches? How long is he going to hold it? Is it 2 hitches or 3 hitches? So I want to adjust my sets accordingly. And I want to make sure that I always talk to teams about taking the passive out of pass protection. How can we be the aggressors as opposed to just sitting back and letting somebody run into you for 40 plays? How can we all of a sudden take it to them and make them think and make them second guess? Is this a run? Is this a pass? What are they doing here? And how aggressive can you be? And so to me, it's imperative to know the depth of the quarterback, the timing of the route, what we're trying to accomplish. Hey, where is my help? Do I have slide coming to me? If we're running 3 jet halfback burst, shoot, I know I'm getting the halfback through my B gap. I know that. So it behooves me, even if I've got an outside guy, to set inside. Because what's going to happen if I invite the guy? I mean, D linemen are dumb, you know that. So if I invite the guy to go outside, what's he going to do?
Now I do.
Right. If I invite the guy to go outside and I take away the inside and invite him outside, where's he going to go? He's going to go outside. And I know my running back is coming through that gap, so it's going to be like two shopping carts in a in a aisle. And they're like, oh, excuse me, and I don't even have to touch the guy. I blocked him. I win. So understanding those nuanced parts of football is how you become really good, and how you basically work smarter and not necessarily harder, right? And those are the things that the great ones teach you, and those are the conversations and the in-depth kind of understanding of the game that you develop when you kind of take your game and you take the mental approach to the game to the next level.
I have to ask you this because I've been thinking about it since the last time you came on, Mark. I mean, you can talk football. Like, you can break down football and talk football for hours, I bet. Like, someone could probably just bring up one thing, and an hour later you're talking football. Still, one thing leads to another. Right. You shared a locker room with Shannon Sharpe, who could talk about anything for 24 hours. So when you guys were in the locker room at a practice game, were there times where you just start chatting and all of a sudden you realize you go outside, the sun's down, like nobody's there anymore? I can imagine just epic conversations between you two guys that just started off with, hey, what do you think of that?
Not with Shannon. No. Shannon is so loud that you can't. You're not having a conversation with him. He's having a conversation at you. So yeah, there's a big difference there with Shannon. I love Shannon. Shannon is just always yapping on about whatever he's yapping on about, and Shannon's that guy that drives everybody crazy because Shannon is the guy that's picking a fight with the guy that you're playing against. And so he's never picking a fight with the guy he's playing against. He's picking a fight with the guy you're playing against. And so, you tend to get a little annoyed with him. When we played together, there were many times I was, especially on the field, that I get very upset or annoyed with Shannon, and I let him know about it. But he's a great friend.
The famous Rick Riley story in Sports Illustrated. I think the year you guys went to the Super Bowl, where its story led with Rick Riley just writing a lead sentence about asking Shannon Sharpe something, and then the next 600 paragraphs of the story until the end was just all a block quote from Shannon.
Right. Yeah.
There was no writing involved. He just wrote the lead paragraph to it. It was hysterical.
That sounds about right.
Mark, when you look at the situation with Philly, right? They're 1-1, and I don't know what your expectations were coming into the season. Jeff and I, when we do our show, we didn't think they'd be a playoff team. We know they're in a bad division. But as you look at this, you've studied their offensive defense. You just called this game, and you're calling another game of theirs later. What do you see this team for the rest of the season? How good could they be?
Well, I think I see them a lot like I see the team in my town, Denver. I see them as a team that has the potential to compete for a playoff. I don't think they're unique. Philly's unique in that we know the Giants are struggling, right? Washington, I think Washington, they're kind of built in a similar fashion in that they're pretty stout on both lines of scrimmage, especially their defensive line. And the rest of it, you're not quite sure about. Heineke. You're not quite sure. They've got one receiver that's outstanding, but you're just not quite 100% sure on the rest of it. But they're stout. The Cowboys, the Cowboys are going to cowboy. They're gonna allow you to be in every game. I mean, that's what they do. That's the way they're built. They can have a dominant performance at the end of the game. You're like, how the hell we lose by a field goal? I mean, that's who they are. So I think Philly, your division is a little bit more unique than the AFC West where Denver plays, because regardless of how good the roster is and how good you play, and Teddy Bridgewater's been outstanding, you're still the fourth best quarterback in that division. And so, I think of them as a team that can fight for a wild card position. I think Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers have a lot to prove. I just don't think you're going to lean on your defense the whole year. And you gave up on the running game, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now all of a sudden you're going to be a great run team. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it's something you got to work on. It's a skill. That's a great skill that requires a lot of work. So, I think you've got a chance to be in there, that 7th playoff position, fighting at the end of the year. I think Philly, you either in the NFC East, you either win the division or you're at home for the playoffs.
Exactly.
And like I said, with the strength of their offensive and defensive lines and the talent they have on the opposite side of the ball, I mean, don't get me wrong. Hey, Darius Slay is one of the top cover corners in football. They still their back end can still play. I just think that with Devontae Smith and some of the other receivers they have, Jalen Reagor, your first rounder from a year ago, has really become the 4th option over there. Like, he's more of a special teams guy than he is anything else. And those 2 tight ends, and by the way, Miles Sanders is one of the best backs in football that nobody really knows about or has ever heard of. So I just think you've got a chance, dependent upon how Jalen Hurts progresses. You got a chance to win the division. Now it may be at 10-7, or it may be at 9-8, but it's still a winnable division for you based on the way you're built. So, like I said, I came away, even with that game and the loss to San Fran, I came away really feeling, after studying them in-depthly, I really came away feeling like, hey, the Eagles are a lot better team than when I sat down to start my initial study of them on Monday, and I finished and got on the plane on Thursday, and I walked in going, shoot, that's a heck of a lot better team than I assumed it was going to be watching them on film. Like way better than I thought they would be.
Well, you will get another chance this season, you and Adam Amin, right, to do an Eagles game later in the year, I believe.
I'm not 100% sure. I only have my schedule through 4 weeks, so then we kind of start going week to week to week. But if the Eagles Broncos on Fox?
That's a great question. I do not know the answer to that yet.
If the Eagles Broncos is on Fox, I'm going to have a great chance to do the game, because Fox is really good to me. Like, if they can put me on a Bronco game, or they can put me in my hometown, so I don't have to travel 1 week. They like to do that to take the pressure. They do it with all their analysts, so they want Aikman. They'll put Aikman on a Cowboy game because they're the Cowboys, but mostly because he doesn't have to travel that week. So it just takes some of the wear and tear off of you, especially with for us it's an 18-game schedule, right? Because of the bye week. So just if they can like shoot you a solid and take some pressure off you, they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's actually tentatively a CBS game right now, but we do know with the flex scheduling, sometimes things can change. So, but right now,
well, if it's anything like Peggy Shanahan, Mike Shanahan's wife, Mike is going into the Ring of Fame here in Denver on October 17th, and I think it's October 17th with the game against the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And so Peggy called up my wife and asked my wife if I could just switch and do that game that weekend so I could be there for Mike's induction. It's a CBS game. And then my wife asked me if I could make that happen. And I thought to myself, you and Peggy have been involved in professional football, her for 40 plus years, my wife for 30 plus years. And you guys think I can just go, hey, CBS, you mind if you give me your game and I'll give you my game? I'm not sure that's the way it works, but hey, I'll ask.
Hey, if anybody can make it happen, Mark, maybe it's you.
Right.
All right. Well, listen, you'll be at you got the New Orleans game this weekend. That should be a fantastic game. And obviously, if anybody else wants to hear you on other platforms, you're on 104.3 The Fan every morning, right? Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, yep.
Right, out in Denver, Colorado. Of course, people can visit your website, stinkinggood.com. And what could they get there?
You can get my green chili sauce. You can get my queso dip. You can get, just a plethora of wonderful treats at your beck and call.
Good stuff. Excellent type of stuff. And look, we look forward to catch up with you again down the road. You're just awesome. We love talking football with you.
Always a pleasure, man. Take care, Jeff. Adam, always good to catch back up with you, buddy.
Thanks,
All
man.
right. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to Deal Dash. Thanks to Mark. Thanks to DraftKings. And, of course, Sky Motor Cars, another sponsor. Go to skymotorcars.com. Check them out if you're buying or trading in a new vehicle. For Adam Kaplan, Mark Schlereth, I'm Jeff Mosher. You've been watching Inside the Birds TV.